right, well, welcome everyone. I would like to welcome you to the unique roles and lessons learned from the field of peer professionals. My name is Tracy Vincent, and I coordinate the Peer Mentor Program through the Michigan Developmental Disabilities Council. And I am going to be the moderator for this session. We have 4 panelists with us who will be sharing with us today their unique roles and experiences as a peer professional. This is a very informal workshop. We don't have a formal presentation, but I do have a list of prepared questions that I'm going to be asking each of the panelists. And then you will also have an opportunity to ask questions. You can either use the raise hand function at the located at the bottom of your screen, or you can type your comment or question in the chat box. All right, so with that, I am going to have each of the panelists introduce themselves, giving you their name, their title, the organization they work for, and their role. So with that, Monica, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, I am Monica Ortquist. I am a certified peer support specialist since 2008, and I am with Michigan Peer Specialists United.
All right, and Robert.
Hello, I'm Robert Spruce. I'm with Detroit, Detroit Integrated Health Network. I'm a certified peer mentor.
All right, thank you. Jose?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jose Salinas. I work for Network 180, which is the Kent County CMH in Grand Rapids. My current role is community outreach specialist. And basically, it's a lot of the education, raising awareness in our community about mental health and the services. Done several roles in Network 180, one of them with peer recovery coaching. So I still do a lot of that engagement as well with the people that we serve. Good to be with you.
All right, thank you. And then we have Annie.
Hi, I'm Annie McGraw. I am a certified peer recovery mentor, certified peer recovery coach, certified youth recovery coach, and I work for CARE of Southeast Michigan right now.
All right, well, thank you very much. All right, so I'm just going to jump right into our questions. So the first question that I have, and Jose, if you could start us off by answering this first question. What do you feel is the main support you supply to the people that you serve?
Yeah, I would. So this one, I kind of started with exploring just some of the really main focuses, but also with the strengths. I don't know if you mind if I just kind of like combine them both. But definitely the relating with their experience is the number one thing. And I think that all of us in this room could raise our hand and agree that, that is the one thing that the main support that we offer to people so that they feel less alone in that process of recovery. And with that comes empathy and friendly and respecting the people's process. So I think that is the main support, because a lot of times I've noticed even in my own personal recovery where we felt alone and didn't feel understood or like anybody was really listening to what we really need. So I think that is important. So relating with experience and bringing empathy and friendliness and respect in their process.
All right. And Monica, for you, what do you feel is the main support you supply to the people that you serve?
Mine was along the lines of Jose. It was, the lived experience is just letting them know, what it's like to be there. A lot of times that was when I was going through my journey, having somebody understand what I was going through was just something that helped me. Because I mean, I wasn't able to have a peer support when I was having issues. And once I found peer support, it was a whole new world for me. So that's something that I really look for, you know, and want to make sure other people understand that it's there.
All right, thank you. And Robert, what about you? What do you feel is the main support you supply to the people that you serve?
The main support I supply is working with other peer mentors, whereas where I work directly, we do not perform direct service, so therefore I supply support to my peer mentors, which work with providers. Oftentimes, when I need to, I supply mainly advice, guidance, and camaraderie with the peers. And really, when I mean camaraderie, I try not to pry, but when an issue come about and they want to talk to, they can either Facebook me or Facebook me or email to tell me I got this issue and I want to problem solve, come up with a solution. I don't try to think for my peers, or do I just try to be a sounding board and give sound advice on how they should either deal with the individual or work-related situations.
All right, thank you. And then Annie, what about you? What do you feel is the main support you supply to the people that you serve?
Yeah, along with what everyone else is saying, just that lived experience and bouncing ideas off of each other, definitely the compassion and giving them a safe space to feel able to be who they are. And I'm just meeting them where they're at for whatever that looks like for them. And just going in with all the compassion and non-judgment in the world so that they feel safe and know that I've been where you're at, like they were saying earlier, and you can trust this space that you're in.
Great, thank you. So the next question, and Robert, we're going to go ahead and start with you. Are there challenges that you have experienced along the way? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Yes, there's challenge. I think one of the main challenges I find is how dealing with people understanding what up in my particular the role of a peer mentor. Sometimes individuals have a perception that peer mentors have roles or ours, something that is a role which they perceive. So how I dealt with was first figuring out what they perceive a peer mentor was. Then trying to explain to them this is the what it was meant for, and this is how you do it. Now, sometimes I'm successful, but there's times that are not successful. So I would have to eliminate the role. And if they can't get with the role, we sometimes I had to leave it in their court to say this is what it is. You know, not trying to be taking or leave it, but making you aware this is our role, and our role cannot function any kind of way for what it was created. Just can't.
So you're saying that the challenge is perception.
Perception.
Okay, and then do you also feel a challenge is that sometimes CMH staff do not see the value of a peer mentor? Would you say that would be a challenge?
Yes, that would be what I mean by perception and not willing to acknowledge what it is. So I'm trying to kind of walk the thin line because I know this is recorded, so I gotta watch what I say.
All right, thank you. So Monica, are there challenges that you have experienced along the way? And if so, how did you overcome them?
I looked at this question as personal, and mine was self-care and boundaries. Boundaries was mainly in the beginning when I was a peer, and dealing with that was just like dealing with Kathy, Shelley, and Jean Tokarski were the three that really helped me learn how to deal with boundaries and myself, you know, because when you're a new peer, you're ready to take on the world, and you're gonna help everybody, and you're gonna do everything for everybody, and just go get them and everything like that. And then you realize you can't, and that leads into the self-care. And you know, and self-care is just something you're constantly having to keep up on, and you know, so that's just something that you're always doing, and you always have to make sure you keep up on that, because if you don't, then we end up having, you know, I mean, we make sure that we tell the people that we serve, you know, to keep with their self-care, but I think sometimes we forget ourselves.
Mm-hmm. That is a great point, Monica. It's hard to help others if we're not taking care of ourselves. When we're well and we take care of ourselves, then we're able to, you know, provide that support and have that positive impact on others. So great point. Jose, what about you? Have you experienced these challenges along the way?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so the place where I work, that is the one and only job I've had since I did the training for peer recovery coaching. So that was the very first one and the only one I've had. And I've stuck through it and really have learned to grow through those challenges. But with your question, like some of the challenges and thinking more the early on, like at the beginning. So really quick, I went from being a painter, you know, residential painting and doing all that, taking the training, going into the field right away after the training. And so it was kind of a shock. So getting adjusted. But one of the things that made it a lot more challenging was definitely along with what Robert was mentioning, the value, seeing the value in peer work, and also being seen as an expert in the field, you know, when it comes to addiction and recovery, being seen as an expert in the field. So there was a lot of times that I was, you know, disrespected and humiliated in a sense. You know, I could tell you stories about that that really was looked at as almost like an office help. Like, here, just take these resources. You don't tell them anything else. You don't talk to them. You just give them resources. That's it. Yeah, hand them these papers. And it was at the very beginning. So it was like a month into it. So looking at that, it's like, okay, so what am I here for then? You know, because I thought, you know, this, you know, understanding why we do the work we do as peers is to relate with the individual, but also to be able to bring a different culture into the field of mental health, that a recovery culture, that recovery is possible. So not only do we use our stories, but we also have other trainings that qualifies us to do even beyond just, here's a piece of paper, this is where you go, and that's it. So yeah, I was definitely very disappointed and discouraged at the beginning, to the point of wanting to, you know, to quit. And I am grateful for my recovery, that in really being introspective and just taking that step back and saying, okay, what's going on? You know, why am I here? And how can I get through this and learn and grow through this? And I had to really be empathetic to the professionals, the mental health professionals, like therapists, clinicians, you know, master level social workers, which, you know, I didn't know we have a lot more experience when it comes to addiction and recovery, you know, than some of the training that master level social workers get, you know, when they go to college. So it's like, that was pretty interesting to me. But anyway, so I started really thinking about and having empathy and compassion towards what, you know, how they were responding to me, and understanding that there was a level of trust that also needed to be worked on. So I was trying to not to focus on taking it personal, even though it was, because I was like humiliated several times. And so taking that step back and learning, okay, they need to know that they need to learn that I can be trusted, that I am a professional, and that I do have experience in the subject of recovery, that I can support someone through their process, that I don't necessarily gonna do it for them, and that I'm gonna maybe serve as a guide, and I am gonna keep my lane and not be anything else but a peer recovery coach. I'm not gonna try to be a therapist, counselor, any of that. So I think they needed to know that. So a quick story to illustrate that: one of the therapists, because I was part of a crisis stabilization team, 30-day service within Network 180, and it's one of the therapists, she comes to me and she starts giving me instructions, and she goes, "Look at me when I'm talking to you," you know, and she said, "You're just gonna give him this papers. This is all you gotta do." I'm like, oh my, I had to take a breath and really, okay, this is a lot. So I go in the room to speak to the individual, and as we said in the previous question, that relating with the experience brings us into a place of connection with individuals who are hurting, seeking services, where they open up a lot quicker to us than some of the therapists, you know, in the field, or even clinicians. And I went in with the individual. Individual shared just some of the things that was happening, and I said to the individual, "Have you talked to your therapist about it? Would you mind if I share? It might be helpful to share with your therapist." So I hadn't talked to the therapist about this particular issue, and spent a lot more time talking to me when I was only supposed to get paperwork. And I went to the therapist and I said, "Hey, by the way, she said this and this and that. I asked her, you know, to talk to you about it." And the therapist just kind of like was shocked and didn't say anything. Like, she didn't say anything. I just kept my boundary. I kept my boundaries, my lane. This is my role. And, you know, after, I think that was the tipping point for me and that therapist, that relationship with that therapist, where she just started looking at me differently and including me in other ways with the individuals that we served through that program. And eventually, you know, others kind of like also started seeing me as more of that person to serve in that process, including therapists like Jose. If they're benefiting from meeting with you, they can take that session to meet with you and gain peer support rather than me handling the session. So that was a big leap, and just sticking with it and, being patient and learning that they needed to also learn and adjust to the idea of having a peer in their team.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
And Annie, what about you? What are some challenges that you have faced and how did you overcome them?
I would probably say other than boundaries, because like Monica said, for when you think you can just help everyone. So I definitely had to learn that. But besides that, I would definitely say secondary trauma. I work in the recovery field. I work with CPS cases, domestic violence, and all sorts of things that cause that are traumatizing to my women. I work mostly with women. And so just making sure to have those clear boundaries and not experience secondary trauma, especially, and like Jose was saying, not take it on as I'm their counselor. Hello, Kitty. Not take it on as I'm their therapist, and just like Robert was saying earlier, just be that soundboard and listen, and not take it as my own, but really absorbing some sad things it has been definitely a challenge for me.
All right, thank you. Let's see, Robert, what does success look like in your role?
What do success look like? And this is going to sound wild. I don't think success is going to be very visible for me, because I'm going to always press on. I'm going to always press the marker. But an attribute of success is when I can help, when someone get it. You know what I'm saying? When you can lay tools out for an individual and they can recognize the tool and use the tool to their advantage. That's what success. And let me clarify, when somebody says to me, okay, you taught me this, I don't need you no more, I can do it for myself now. That was success is. And the reason why I say, to go back to my initial statement, I don't have a clear perception of success because there's always more. Well, I'm always looking for more. I'm like Prince. I'm the father that not satisfied. So, I mean, I can be pleased, but I would never be successful. I would never be satisfied, because I believe when it comes to human potential, there's no limit. And my question is, should there be a limit to a person's development?
That's a good question. Oh, you in the chat, we have I second that, Robert. All right, thank you for that. Annie, what about you? What does success look like for you?
Well, I took this question, like, what does success look like in my field? And so success in my field looks kind of like recovery looks like, which is whatever it means to the person that we're serving. So if success means to them that they're working full-time at McDonald's and they get full benefits and they can start going to school, then that's what success is. If success means that they got on disability and are able to function and get up and shower every day, then that's what success is. And back to just meeting them where they're at, that is, I mean, every day little successes go a long way.
Absolutely. Jose, what does success look like for you in your field?
As I'm working with someone, I think Robert mentioned a little bit of that, about a person not needing my help anymore. Like the best help I can give is when they don't need my help anymore. Like, if someone can really gain their autonomy and be self-directed, like, and kind of voicing out what Annie was saying with defining what their recovery process looks like, right? And that ongoing growth and accomplishing what they want to accomplish. So yeah, that they're not dependent on me, and that I can just support them and they can gain their autonomy and be able to direct their own recovery in the way they want to see it develop.
Great. All right. Thank you. And then Monica, what about you? What does success look like for you in your field?
Mine's kind of a combination of Robert and Annie. It's sometimes just seeing that spark of hope in somebody's eye is success, because you may not have seen it for months from them, and then they finally get something in there, and it's like, yes, they're there, there's somebody there, they know it. And then when they don't need you, and meeting them where they're at, if they just got up and took a shower, or got up and got a cup of coffee, even if they didn't take a shower, they at least got out of bed and got a cup of coffee for the day. Some days they just can't take a shower, but they got out of bed. They moved somewhere, some days that's all they can do. They at least moved to a different spot. That's something they did. You have to praise those successes too some days for them. Because I know there's days even moving to a different spot is hard. And I want to make sure people understand that's a big thing too. So, you have to let people understand that. And just by, letting them know, hey, I know that that's hard to do. And, so they understand that, that's successful.
And I think that goes back to what Annie has indicated about your meeting people where they're at. I think you bring that point back again, that it's meeting people where they're at, and success is going to look different for everybody. So no matter how big or how small. All right, thank you. So since the pandemic, what are some ways, if any, that peer roles and responsibilities have changed? So let's see. Who can I start with? Annie, would you like to start off that question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I've noticed a huge shift in how we serve people. There are a lot less resources right now than there were pre-COVID. Unfortunately, we have a lot less therapists with a lot less availability, which is really hindering some of my person serves. I would also say that a lot of problems came from COVID. A lot more people started drinking a lot more, and people had a lot more money to use with and a lot more convenience. And now everyone is trying to get back on the right track, and it's been pretty difficult to provide resources. So it's definitely been a shift. And I was only a coach for a few months pre-COVID, and I even saw the shift. So I'm sure people who have been in this field for quite a while have seen it quite well.
All right, thank you. Jose, do you feel that there has been a change in roles and responsibilities since the pandemic?
I would, it's besides the virtual and the phone changes, virtual meetings, I mean, I think the approach of being more emphasizing for me in my, as I supported others in their recovery, it was being putting more emphasis on that interpersonal skills. You know, because being recovery, being self-directed is like having those interpersonal skills is important when those resources or the resources that we were so used to before the pandemic, with having all the in-person meetings and therapy sessions and coaching and the list goes on and on. It's like I think that when all that change happened, it's like, what do we do now, and how do we maintain, or how do we continue to be in that process of recovery, whatever that looks like, by the use of our interpersonal skills, recovery skills, so that we can move forward and continue in our path of recovery, regardless of what's available for us.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. And Robert, what about, have you seen the roles and responsibilities change for peer mentors since the pandemic?
Yes, but if I can, due to what I do, I want to deal with the peer mentor aspect, and because I don't perform the right services. What I noticed among I want to say, I have 5 peer mentors. Thus, when we started, I noticed what we gonna do, because they realized they couldn't go in the office, and a lot of them were not savvy with Zoom, Facebook, or any other communication than see you face to face. But as time moved on, I have seen certain people come out that shell, get cut on their computer, and communicate with each other, because one, they had a problem with loneliness. 2, because they needed to learn the technology for their place of work. So I have seen people not use technology, not be more adventurous and inventing the wheel and making it work for them, and changing and bending the wheel. And it's sort of funny, because a couple of my peers haven't been coming to other meetings, but slowly but surely I have seen them appear in my other meetings. So that's kind of a plus for me. And I hope I answered the question.
Yes, you did. And I just actually want to mention that from what I've seen, how the roles and responsibilities have changed with peer mentors. Many peer mentors mentor around being included in the community and community activities, and helping to navigate transportation and those types of activities. And that was a big part of the peer mentor jobs. And so when the pandemic hit and we were all at home, many of the roles had shifted to how to help people cope during the pandemic, trying to provide them with resources, just checking in on people, making sure that they're doing okay. And then it moved towards really helping them stay connected to different groups using Zoom and, virtual platforms. So I've seen a big change in that as well.
Can I kind of liken this to to something. It's a book I read it before the pandemic, long before, and I read it during the pandemic, and it's very pertinent to your question. The name of the book is called "Who Moved My Cheese?" And if anybody read the book, and I recommend the book, you have I'm gonna say it like this: it's either you're gonna be soft or hard, and understand what happened when your cheese it moved and what you gonna do when it moved. If that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. And then Monica, have you seen peer roles and responsibilities change since the pandemic?
Yeah, we've actually had a turn down. I work in drop-in. I volunteer in that more. And because we had to close, we closed for almost a year because of everything that was going on, because our city was one of the hardest hit, so we had to keep closed. And we're just now getting people back into the center like we were. And that's been hard because, just our peer work, just trying to keep in touch with the people. And a lot of them don't have the phones to keep in touch, and trying to find them is hard. And because of the social, we need to be in touch with people. And, like Peggy was talking this morning, the social aspect and keeping in touch. And, we don't know where people are because of the transient and things like that. Mm-hmm. So trying to find where everybody is now, and you don't know. So that's changed how we look at people and going around in our outreach.
Okay, well, thank you. So we have talked about your roles and responsibilities and some of the successes and challenges, but how do you explain what you do to the people that you serve? And how do you explain it to others? So Jose, would you like to start with this question?
Sure. So definitely can look a little bit different depending on the situation and the person. But for example, it's like, I'm here to support you and help you explore ideas for your recovery. My role is a peer recovery coach. And a lot of times they can open up to even sharing pieces of my story that can be helpful, and primarily just explaining to them about being able to talk about the different services that are available, being able to talk about the programs, and again, this with individuals, and and supporting them in how they want the recovery to look like. When it comes to others, is maybe something like, I support others in their recovery journey from a person who has been there, from someone who has the lived experience. So kind of understanding that is that relation between not just someone who is a professional, but also someone that has had direct experience with the actual services that we provide in our counties, right? Because part of that requirement is being someone that has utilized the services in the past as a peer recovery coach. So I think that's an important piece, understanding where that experience comes from. It's not just the lived experience, but also specialized training to be able to support others in their recovery.
Thank you.
Okay.
Annie, how would you explain your role to the people that you served, and how would you explain it to others?
So how I explain it to the people I serve and how I explain it to others are much different, because the people I serve already know why they're there. They filled out their own referral. Everyone who comes to us knows why they're being seen. It's not like a mystery. And so I typically start by asking my person served why they're there, why they're coming to me. And once we get that unwrapped and I figure out like what their pathway might look like, depending on how we, move forward, I just tell them that I have, like Jose was saying, the lived experience. And again, that I'm meeting them where they're at. That's my go-to. Really, if your focus is to moderate your drinking, we're gonna figure that out. If your focus is to use substances and moderate that, then that's what we're gonna do, or not moderate it and just support you and give you something so I can listen to you when you need to talk. And if it's, a 12-step abstinent-based program, then we work with, and so I try to get to that before I kind of go into what I can provide, because, it is a tailored program and everyone is so different. And then like outsiders or like people who are like, oh, what do you do for a living? I typically say that I just support people on their journey to recovery and provide resources.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Monica, how would you explain what you do to the people that you serve? And then how would you explain it to others?
I'm like Annie. For people I serve, they kind of know what I do because they know who I am when they get there. Because of drop-in, they know peer supports is there. You kind of give them a little bit more of an idea when they get there, because sometimes they still don't understand peer support. You just, I'm somebody who has lived experience, and then they kind of start getting it. To outsiders, I just say I'm somebody with a mental health diagnosis who's been trained in different techniques to help people. And, then if they want to, most of the time they want to delve into it a little bit more on the different things, especially the past couple of years. I think the pandemic's got people a lot more open to talk.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. And then Robert, I know you have a little bit different role. So how do you explain peer mentoring to others?
Well, I do it differently for people who research service. I explain what a peer mentor is. It's someone that teaches other people how to navigate the CMH services. It's help you to live independently, and I give through all the let's just say political correct terminology, because I'm trying to figure out how to shorten things up so I can be quick about it. When it's somebody that don't know the CMH system, or I try to give them like a 20-second slide. I say each one teach one. That's what I do. I help people that have IDD how live more independent lives. I try to put it in one sentence because they don't want to hear this long explanation. So, but if they press me, I give them spiel.
All right, thank you. And so, Monica, the next question, we're going to start with you. And will you tell us maybe one or two, one of the most important lessons that you have learned?
I think one is not to take everything to heart. Mm-hmm. We can be evil when we're in crisis. So I think just, because just when you're helping somebody in crisis, just don't take it to heart, because, you're offering them a safe place and they need to know it's safe to let loose, and they need that. And you need to offer that to them, and just, have some thick skin sometimes. So, and remember, it's a calling. It's not a job. That's my biggest thing, is it's not a job, it's a calling. There's a reason you started. And there's always a reason you started, and that wasn't because you wanted to make money. Unfortunately, we all know that. I mean, we want to make a good living. We're trying to, but there's another reason we all got here. So
I think those are very good, important lessons learned. All right. Annie, what about you? What are some lessons learned?
I would definitely also, off of what Monica said, don't take anything personally. I don't know if anyone's ever read the book, The Four Agreements. It's like a book that I live by. Don't make assumptions, don't take anything personally, or just two of them. But I would definitely say, don't take anything personally, and realize that these people are in crisis mode, and we just need to be their safe space. I've definitely learned boundaries are huge. My old supervisor was just talking about, like, my first month there, I put on my cape and was out in Detroit until midnight trying to help someone get into treatment, which doesn't bother me, but it bothered him, and so really just learning boundaries. And throughout this process, I've learned a lot about myself, and what I want my own recovery journey to look like, because I was, I like to say, brought up, in abstinence-based program, NA, AA programs, and I have learned so many different ways and styles, and I love harm reduction and moderated drinking. I think that all the different pathways that are offered towards recovery are just absolutely amazing. And I'm so, like Monica said, this was a calling, and my old peer recovery coach told me that I needed to apply to be one. So I really wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. I knew what she did, but she was amazing, so I never thought I could amount to her. So I'm just, I love what I do, and I love that I work for an agency that supports me, because that's a huge factor. And I love that I have the flexibility of encouraging all pathways, and not just like being a sponsor and only encouraging AA or NA. So I love learning all of that.
Great, thank you. And Jose, what about you? What are some lessons that you've learned?
So the one at the very beginning that was so important just for my mental health and stability and balance, and which is one that I'm trying to, I'm working on applying to the different areas of my life, including in working with other professionals, it's surrender the outcome. So I'd like knowing that change for someone else is not my responsibility. Just having that simple quote in my mind, surrender the outcome. And with that surrendering comes many different aspects of respect for people's process, and just the many different things, because it's not my responsibility to create change for someone or anyone. That's including with some of the challenges that I had early on with other mental health professionals, like social workers and therapists. It's like, it is what it is. And I don't have that responsibility to create change. I can just support advocate, educate, you know, and that is it. That is my responsibility, nothing else. What comes out of it, it's not up to me.
All right, thank you. And then Robert, what about you? What are some lessons that you have learned along the way?
Well, you know, I'm special, so my one principle could sound like two things, but that's me. I learned patience and temperance when I first started in this. I wasn't a very patient or tempered person. I'm a very, okay, why you don't get this? It's very simple. And over the years, I developed it to be where I'm at today is, okay, okay, I don't agree, but I understand where you are at. And being calm and saying, okay, where in the beginning I was being, why you don't get it? So kind of, when I say temperance and patience, that will be my number one. Either it's 2 and 1. I'm cheating here. My number 2 is I'm still learning what I need to learn.
Hey, it's me. Call me back. Give me a call when you get this. Yeah, I'm.
Okay, I'm gonna call somebody or want somebody to call them. But anyway, I'm still learning what I gotta learn, because to say it's one thing, I think I'm learning to be more fluid and just be like water. And I get to go with number 1, just go with the flow and try to make the adjustments as I go. I mean, because dealing with people that receive services, I'm learning you gotta be fluid, you know, you gotta let them be them and just add what they want to add. Do that make sense?
It does.
So I'm learning to be calm, patient, calm and tempered, number 1, and number 2, fluid. So that way I got gray hair now. So I'm learning.
All right. Well, thank you, panelists. That was all great advice that that you're sharing with us. So I have a couple more questions. So we'll start with Jose. Jose, how do you feel your job as a peer professional could be strengthened?
Yeah, Tracy, I left that question empty. It's just there's so much and so many different, I guess, angles or so many different factors of how we can be strengthened in our role, and because even as a peer, but also like as a person, you know, being able to be included in the things that we do, not just as a conversation, but actually finding value in the things that we say. And it could be different for everybody because, you know, in our culture of recovery and in our peer force, we are made up of many different cultures. And I think that's when you work in a big agency, you'll have different cultures, you know, and peers that come from different cultures. So I think it's, you know, if I have to say one thing, It's to, but see, that's, and I'm even tempted to not say it because I just said surrender the outcome. It's not up to me that people learn to be inclusive and really being able to not try to have all the power and all the strength, but to allow others to be included with their value, with their experience and their skills and, you know, their knowledge to make a difference in the system. Mm-hmm. It's hard to do, right? I don't know that that would ever be accomplished. I don't want to live in a world of dreams and that fairy tales happen, because you know, I don't know. We'll just keep working and keep moving through it and continue to grow through this process.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes.
Annie, so what are your thoughts? How do you feel your job as a peer professional could be strengthened?
Well, my agency does a really good job of offering different trainings and providing education and CEUs and anything that we want to learn, they will help us learn or find us a training for it. And I think that as peer professionals, we should always be learning and growing with the times and learning less stigmatizing language. And we should always have our open mind and be willing to learn from our person served or the people that we serve, because as much as I try to help them, they also help me. So really keeping an open mind across the board would help strengthen anyone's peer role, I believe. And that's what I've truly lived by as a recovery coach, just constantly keeping an open mind and not shutting down any opportunity or suggestion or training. I take all the trainings and all the anything that I can to learn and gain more knowledge, I jump on. And I think that if you're offered that in your agency or in your role, that you should definitely take advantage of it.
All right, thank you. Monica, what about you?
Just the inclusiveness that Jose built upon is just as where we are right now, as we move into other areas of the health field. I mean, you know, we're starting to move into the ERs, we're moving into private practices, private hospitals, things like that. You know, I mean, this is where we need to go because this is where healthcare is going. So, I mean, we as professionals need to go where healthcare is going. So we need to grow as everything else does, but, you know, we need to be inclusive in everything. So we need to bring the conversations up. I mean, if we want them brought up, I mean, if we've waited, I mean, we've been around since 2005, so this is something we need to do and we need to bring it up. So that's kind of what has to go on now. Mm-hmm. And then we can continue to grow. So, but we also need to keep going where we're going.
Yep, those are great points. And then Robert, what about you? Do you feel, how could your role as a peer professional be strengthened?
My role, see, I kind of can put this in say this oddly. I'm going to say mine can be driven by experience. I think the more experience you have, and you go through that experience using the things that you already know, I guess that would give me the strength. I mean, to sit here and say it's one thing, I feel it wouldn't be truthful, but I feel like I'm being truthful when I'm saying experience strengthens me. Now, do I have experience? Yes, I do have a lot of experience, but like when I said earlier about fluidity and dealing with folks, sorry y'all, this is getting into my countryside. When dealing with folks, people can bring things to the table where you say, oh, okay, this is different. So I can take what I go through, deal with it, then I can, after I'm done out that situation, I can draw back on that experience to solve another problem where it might apply. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I'm not solving the problem. I'm helping others to solve the problem. I could draw from that experience and give that advice so others can deal with it. So I would say experience. More experience is the better from my standpoint.
All right, thank you. All right, so the last question, I see a couple of familiar faces. We do have a couple of peer mentors who have will be trained or have just been trained. And so what would you tell a new peer professional who was just starting out? What advice would you give them? So who would like to take that question first? Okay.
So definitely be patient. Learn as much as you can. Don't stop learning. I mean, search whatever role you come from. But in my case, with addiction and addiction recovery and mental illness, I dove into researching and everything and taking different trainings, even on my own choice. Like there was trainings offered. I am grateful for the agency I work for. They gave me lots of opportunities for trainings, but even outside of that, I searched for more trainings, more knowledge, looking up research on addiction recovery, mindfulness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say just learn as much as you can and don't stop learning. And I think that's something that can really help us in our growth mindset and be able to make a difference, not just for ourselves, but then also for others.
Great advice. Monica, Annie, or Robert, do you have anything to add?
I'll go on the networking. Networking with the peers is huge because just learning from each other helped me tremendously, because just bouncing off ideas, what they're doing in other parts of the state and helping each other out is huge, because something that you may not have thought of that somebody else is doing somewhere else, it may work in what you're doing at your place. So network.
That's great advice as well.
I would also add, really going in with compassion in any situation. And also on top of that, knowing your biases. Because if you know your biases, then you're able to, you can ask other people for advice. If you're honest with who you are and what you can accept or what you can't accept, it will help you with the person that you're serving. If you say, oh, everything's fine and I don't have any biases, then one, you don't have an open mind, because and two, you're not in tune with yourself. We all have biases. and we need to know what they are to do our job very professionally and productively, in my opinion. I don't know if everyone agrees with me, but I definitely would say that no one is perfect, and it's okay. It's, you know, we're all humans. That's okay. But really being able to not pass judgment on someone because of your own beliefs is very important.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad this is being recorded because you guys are providing such great advice. I want to share it with everyone.
I want to echo with everybody in the panelists has said, but I want to put some emphasis on what the four have said, but haven't really said. You need to know how to listen well and learn that. Well, again, you need, let me rephrase that. You need to practice and practice listening, because more and more you listen, more you learn. And I know we kind of like, well, you gotta listen to do everything everybody said, but maybe people would disagree with me. Listening is an art form. Sorry. The things you pick up on and the thing that you will observe is by listening, and some questions that you have maybe answer without ask. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Great advice. Thank you. Well, I want to thank all of our panelists for answering my questions. We do have a little bit of time, so does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask of the panelists? If so, you can either put it in the chat box or you can raise your hand and unmute. So I do see a hand, Jeannie.
Thank you, Tracy. Well, I'm going to be doing this brand new, starting very soon. I'm signed up for the training for September for IDD. What is it rewarding when you guys do your jobs, or does it feel like you are constantly doing the same thing over and over again? I hope that makes sense.
It does. Does one of our panelists want to answer Jeannie's question? Jeannie had said that she is going to be attending the Peer Mentor 101 training that's coming up in September. And does it feel like, as a peer professional, does it feel like you're doing the same thing over and over? Is your what you do, is it rewarding? I hope I captured that correctly, Jeannie.
Yes, you did.
To be truthful, both is did I cut anybody off? I hope I haven't. It can be both. It can be rewarding and it can be repetitious. But sometimes repetitious is a good thing. But the key is you gotta understand that it's repetitious, and it may be repetitious. Even within repetition, you can seek to learn something new, because you can seek the newness within, because sometimes when you think it's the same, it may not be.
Thank you.
Kelly, I see your hand up.
I have a question. Is what do you do with the peers that are new consumers that you're going to shadow IOPOS, and the supports coordinator that they're going to have, they tell you that they won't talk at all, that they can only use sign language. And some of the peer mentors don't know how to do sign language. How do we learn sign language these days?
Well, my question would be, is there an interpreter there?
Probably not, because the supports coordinator asked me if I wanted to shadow tomorrow at an IOPS meeting. And I told them I had to finish off my Michigan Peer Conference for my peer mentor internship. And I'm still trying to, so I talked to that one supports coordinator, and she says that may not be a good one for you to attend, because she asked me if I know how to do sign language.
Well, I'm just wondering if everyone in the planning meeting knows sign language then, because it seems like they would have an interpreter available.
Tracy, can I interrupt on this one? Because I have a person that uses sign language. I know myself, I use a little bit of sign language myself, so I know a little bit. But I know by federal law, they're supposed to have an interpreter if the person requests it, paid by the agency.
Yeah, yes. And Pam just indicated in the chat that if they do not have an interpreter, that's a violation of the ADA.
Yeah, because, yeah.
So
I
maybe
don't know if they do or not, because she's getting these newer people that are doing intakes and stuff like that. And
so Kelly, maybe you and I should talk at another time and figure this piece out. And then we also could bring in another department staff who I believe Pam had put it in the chat as well. Her name is Charles, and she has a lot of work and experience with deaf and hard of hearing. So we'll work on that, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you for your question. And then Sherry, I do see your hand up.
Yes, I didn't have a question, but I was a peer sports specialist for 7 years and teach ethics to all the peer groups represented here today. And my advice for new people is to get in touch with the policies of the agency they are working for, because they need to keep those boundaries, and they need to share those boundaries with the people that they're being introduced to on the first or second visit, and then remind them of the boundaries, because sometimes us being new peers, we have a lot of energy and we want to do all for everybody, and we forget that we've got to keep to agency boundaries, not just our personal boundaries, but agency boundaries.
All right, thank you. And then Jose, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we brought up just, I don't know if it was a comment or a question, but with Chantel about often, peers being stigmatized by coworkers, and, that is not talked a lot about. And I thought it might not be a bad idea, just going to bring that up a bit. And it would be, and one of the reasons to, personally, I know that this is something that I've experienced working in the field, the stigmatizing and the direct discrimination, towards, some of the work we do. And I think it's definitely important to bring that up, which is also part of what we do as peers, which is advocacy. And Monica said it earlier, we need to bring it up, we need to talk about it, and, being able to bring that up and definitely involve the people that need to be involved to not have this kind of issues, because that can be re-traumatizing in itself. And that, ongoing trauma response that you receive in the field, if you're working with somebody that's stigmatizing and, you know, making you feel like, you know, less than or being discriminatory towards, I think it's important. It's an important topic to bring up, because then it's not healthy for us. It's definitely not healthy for the work we do for, you know, for the people in the community. So again, it's something that I've experienced in the past. Chantel, thank you for bringing that up. It's something that I have quite a bit of experience, and I continue to talk about it. Sometimes it gets tiring, and yes, it can be stressful. But yeah, it's something that definitely needs to be talked about.
It's the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I'm one that I'll bring it right up. You have to talk about it, because a lot of people, they'll whisper about it behind you, but they don't talk about it in front of you. And sometimes you have to bring it up in front of them. It's just something you have to bring out. It's like that elephant.
Yeah.
Because then you can face it with them. And then you can discuss it, and you can do it in a safe environment with them and tell them, you know, your facts and lay it out so that they understand what really happened, instead of this story, that story, and everything else around there. So then they understand the truth, and they can hear it in a constructive way.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, so we just have a few minutes left. Any last comments, questions, parting words, thoughts?
Thank you for all your guys' advice. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you to all of the panelists for sharing your knowledge and expertise and your sound advice. I know that I have learned so much in just this hour and 15 minutes. And so I really hope that all of you have as well. So I hope you all enjoy your evening, and we will see all of you back tomorrow morning. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for moderating.